Welcome to Confessions of a Parent Coach. I'm coach, mother of four, and potty talker, Ann-Kaplan. This is the podcast where I confess something from my own parenting and coaching life, teach a lesson around it, and answer your questions. Even we parenting experts are far from perfect, and the real magic happens when we get down with all that imperfection. We get into the gritty side of parenting here, so earbud up and dive in.
Welcome into another episode of the podcast, everybody. Excited to be with you again this week to talk about something that I know we have all dealt with before, which is how hard is it? My goodness, how hard is it for us to just keep up with like a mindfulness practice or some sort of like practice that helps us get out of our heads and get back into those other centers of intelligence, our heart and our gut. We hear about it all the time. People talk about mindfulness. People talk about meditation. People talk about being centered and grounded and getting out of your head and into your body. We hear about it all the time. We've probably even done it ourselves once or twice, but we always fall off the wagon. This is such a common challenge. And the reason why I think it's important to talk about is because it has a huge correlation with our own growth journey as parents and our own effectiveness as parents. And the most tangible aspect of parenthood that it affects is how easily we lose our tempers, how well we can stay calm with our kids, like all of this stuff. It all depends on our own managing our nervous system and really connecting with these other parts of ourselves. And yet, somehow, it is so hard to do. So, before I dive in too much deeper, got to start us off with a confession, right? Like, my confession for you is that I myself fall off the um, self care, mindfulness slash meditation protocol frequently. So I will go for like a couple of months where I'm like super great about doing it every day. I have a specific like guided meditation I like to listen to. I've got a mindfulness practice I like to use. And then I'll just for no reason at all just be quote unquote too busy, and there I am months later, months down the road, wondering why I feel so off and why I'm just like not on my game with my kids and everything just feels a little bit wonky. Well, the reason why is because I'm wonky. I am not centered and grounded, and things are not in balance anymore. So let's talk about this. It's really easy to just talk about, well, what should you do? Like, what is the practice? How do you do it? I want to back up from that first and talk about why do we do it? Like, why is it super important? Why do we fall off the wagon? What can we do about it? And I'm going to use a little analogy that has really been resonating for a lot of my clients recently. So I wanted to share it with all of you. So, the reason why it's super important for us to get out of our heads is because our heads are so good at planning and analyzing and creating visions and evaluating a situation and coming up with possible scenarios and judging something that we just did and making sure that it's in keeping with what we're looking for. All those things, our minds are fabulous at those, but all of those things are either in the future or in the past. And neither of those things actually exist. So the past, it's done, it's over, it no longer exists. And your memory of the past is inaccurate. So that's not real either. All that's happening when we ruminate on the past is imagination. And the future also doesn't exist. When we're looking forward to the future, or we're worried about the future, or we're planning for the future, or making contingency plans about what could possibly happen in the future, all of those things, none of that stuff has actually happened. None of it is guaranteed to happen. It's a fantasy. And this is why when we stay in our heads all the time, we do not feel grounded, because we're not grounded, because we're spending all of our time in spaces that are imaginary. They're not real. The only thing that is real is this present moment right now and right now. and right now. That's the only thing that's real, which is why when we get out of our heads and we use these tools that help us get into the present, we do feel grounded because we are finally in touch with reality, probably for the first time and maybe the only time all day long. And how does this translate into any sort of measurable change in our parenting? It really does. And if you're that person I described at the beginning of the episode of like, I've done it before, I know what it feels like. I have had a practice, but then maybe I, got out of the habit. You know what I'm talking about. You know that when you are regularly, doing something, even if it's just 5 minutes a day to get out of your head, your life for the rest of those 23 hours and 55 minutes of the day is also different. It does impact it. And here's why. And this is the fun analogy that I was talking about before. Like all of the states of being in this world, all of the emotions in this world, they are available to you at all times. And the state of groundedness is one of those things that's available to you at all times. But we sort of have like a couple states of being and a couple emotions that are like our favorite things. Like if you think about them as like things that you put on, you're wearing this outfit right now. They're our favorite outfits. We go to them all the time. They're that cardigan that you grab every time when you're just feeling chilly. They're that outfit that you put on when you just don't want to think about getting dressed and you just grab it and go and it's fine. We've got those. And for most of us, those states that we grab without thinking, those emotions that we grab without thinking are often not the ones that we probably would grab if we were being a little bit more thoughtful. Like the state of anger, for example, the state of frustration, the state of worry, the state of urgency. These are really, really common. They're like that cardigan or I'll be honest with you. Here's a second confession for you. Most of the time I'm wearing like leggings or PJ pants because nobody ever sees me from the waist down. I'm always sitting in front of my computer. So I don't have to look good from the waist down. So these states, there are PJ pants and our leggings and our, comfies, but they really aren't probably serving us that well. And they probably aren't very flattering either. This clothing analogy is going really well right now. So, but that doesn't mean we don't have stuff that is flattering. That doesn't mean we don't have stuff. We have states of being and emotions that we could be choosing, but we just don't. When we do a mindfulness practice, it's like digging around in our sweater drawer for that sweater that you haven't worn in so long that you forgot it exists. And it's like down at the very bottom of the drawer. And when you finally clean out the drawer, you're like, oh, yeah, I remember this sweater. It looks so good on me. Why did I stop wearing this? That is this state of groundedness that we all wish that we had all the time. But when we don't use it, when we don't access it, it just gets, lower and lower and lower in that sweater drawer until it is lost and all the way in the back corner and we forget we even have it. When we do a mindfulness practice, we pull that sweater out, shake off the cobwebs, put it on, experience it, live in that sweater for a little while. And then, yeah, maybe we do take that sweater off. We're not in that state all day long. But when we put that sweater back in the drawer, it's on top. And that means it's way more likely that the next time you need a sweater, the next time you're feeling chilly, you might grab that state of groundedness instead of that cardigan of frustration and urgency. A regular mindfulness practice makes it so that these more functional, more grounded, more effective states of being are right at your fingertips. And it really does work. And you can really see a big impact in how you parent when you are regularly keeping that groundedness state of being easily accessible. That's what a mindfulness practice does for us. Another way to describe this is to use the psychological term of pendulation. So, but for most of us, those other states, those maybe unflattering states, they feel really familiar to us. They're super comfortable, even though they're uncomfortable. It's like the devil you know kind of thing. And we forget that this other stuff exists. And we forget that we can even tolerate being in a different state. So, like, for example, your child is coming to you and let me think. I hadn't prepared an example. So let me come up with an example. Your child's coming to you and they say, I want to quit gymnastics. I know I've been doing it for a really long time and it's the middle of the season, but that's it. I don't want to do it anymore. And I'm not going to do it. And you can't make me do it. And I hate gymnastics. And my coach is a jerk and blah, 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 blah. Your natural state, that cardigan state, might be to say, what? No, you're not quitting, and that's it. And I'm not talking to you about it anymore. Or to try to convince them that they should, change their mind or explain to them why they can't quit or punish them for trying to quit or, have a big power struggle over gymnastics with them. Yeah, that's really natural. And it's super normal for most parents to have that be one of those kinds of reactions, to be one of, the most common kind of thing, our default mode, right? But what if you were doing a mindfulness practice regularly? And so this other state of just like groundedness and calm and peace and patience and slowness, these are the things that come from doing these kinds of practices. Like, I wish there was a word that was as impactful, but the opposite of the word urgency. And the best I can come up with is the thought that, there's no rush. This is not an emergency. That state of being, let's just say that we're super readily accessible to you because you've been doing a regular practice about it. And so it's right there sitting on top of your sweater drawer and you just grab it. All of a sudden, you literally could just and listen to your kids say that they want to quit gymnastics and blah, 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 and just say, thanks for telling me all that. I'll have to think about what you said. Interesting. And that's it. And then you actually do sit with it. And you actually do consider what your kid has said to you. And then you'll come up with a solution, probably in an ideal world, maybe collaboratively with your kid. But do you see one of the reasons why we don't sit in that patience, grounded, slow, this isn't an emergency state is because it actually does feel uncomfortable to do that. It might have even just felt uncomfortable for you to listen to me describe doing that because I didn't come up with a solution. All I did was say, interesting, I'll have to think about that. And I didn't tell you what the right answer was. I didn't tell you what the best parent on the planet would do in that situation. This uncertainty that we might sit in, this sort of eventually I'll figure it out, but I haven't right now. The acceptance and hanging out in this place that we're in without having to quickly move into the part that comes after, like the part where it's figured out and it's settled and resolved and we're not in this like disagreement perhaps with our kid or feeling that like tug of like, well, it should be this way, or but I really want it to go down this way. I'm not sure what to do. Sitting in that place feels uncomfortable for us. Pendulation means that we can go into our default mode and then we can dip our toe into the uncomfortable place. And the craziest thing in this context with mindfulness is that the thing we're dipping our toe into is actually the state we want to be in. It's the state that we actually do desire, but it's so unfamiliar to us and it requires us to sit with discomfort and a little bit of like, I'm not sure. And so it feels uncomfortable, even though it's what we're going for. Sometimes therapists and psychologists and stuff will talk about pendulation in terms of learning how to sit in something that you don't want to experience. Like, oh, maybe there's a person who really triggers you at work and you might spend some time in their presence and then leave, and then spend some time in their presence and then leave. And by doing that pendulation, which you can also just do in your mind, by the way, you start to increase your range of tolerance for this uncomfortable situation, which is being in the presence of this triggering person. That's the typical way that we talk about pendulation when we're talking about psychology. In this case, and this is the craziest thing, we're talking about pendulating by dipping our toe in something lovely, something magical, something desirous, which is grounded peace. But we are so uncomfortable with it. We are so unfamiliar with it that it doesn't feel as good as we want it to. And there's all these yeah buts that our brains come up with. Yeah, but okay, cool. So you were quiet to your kid and you just said, interesting. I have to think about it. Yeah, but what are you going to do? Yeah, but what's the answer? Yeah, but there's gymnastics tomorrow. Are you going? Are you not going? Yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but. So when we do this like pendulation process where it's like, okay, just 5 minutes I'm going to spend in this grounded, peaceful state. And I give myself permission not to necessarily be in that state for the other 23 hours and 55 minutes of this day. We're dipping our toe in that sensation of groundedness. And some of it will feel lovely and some of it will feel, whoa, I'm not so sure about this. And that's okay, because you can come right back to your wigged out normal state that you just love to hang out in for most of the time. Every day, when you go back and forth between those states, if you have a practice, you get to experience an increased access to that state, but also an increased tolerance for that state, an increased tolerance for the uncomfortable parts of calm, peaceful, quiet, slow, which is I'm not in control and I'm okay with not being in control. I don't have the answer and I'm okay with not knowing the answer. I might not know best. I'm okay with not knowing best. I might make a mistake and I'm okay with making a mistake. And that relaxation, that settling into this new state of being becomes tolerable, becomes actually desirable, becomes pleasurable, and it becomes really easy to do it and easy to stay there. So this is why, this mindfulness stuff is hard. This is why we fall off the wagon. And it's why it's powerful, why it really makes a difference, even if you're only just doing it for 5 minutes a day and you don't even think about it the rest of the day. And it's why it's worth it to figure this out. So, all I'm going to tell you in terms of what to do, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that. That's a topic for a future podcast. And also, I have a feeling that you've already tried some of this stuff before, so you don't need me to tell you what to do. But I'll throw a few little things out there. The most important thing is to sometimes it's easier to get into your body than it is to get into your emotions and your heart space. And one of the reasons why that's easy is because you have a body and you could just use your body. And using your body tends to get you out of your head. Go for a walk, get up out of your chair, pace around the house, do some yoga, do like a five senses mindfulness thing where you pay attention to your breath and you pay attention to the sensations in your body. Get into your body. That's very general little mindfulness tip for you. The other thing is, and I had a conversation with a client this morning about this, and so it's fresh in my mind. Cry, just cry, please, please cry so often. Crying is the most powerful connection between our bodies and our hearts and our heads. It is the easiest access point for many, many people, not everybody, but for many people, crying, we feel the emotion and then we tamp it down. Please don't do that. Please just cry. The more you cry, the more open those centers become, the more communicative they are with each other. And the more that you are actually processing emotions and feeling emotions and sitting with those emotions. So, and then of course, you've heard it said a million times, meditation. I know I hate saying that because it's like this cringy thing. And the reason why it's cringy is exactly what we said before, which is my mind is racing. I can't do it. How many more minutes? I get it. Make it easy on yourself. Do a guided meditation. Get a meditation app. One of my clients right now is using the Headspace app, and she says it's worked wonders for her. It's okay. You don't have to like turn into like Ram Dass the second you finish listening to this podcast. Just do something every day that you're not in your head. That's all. That's all I'm suggesting. And I hope that hearing this sort of like behind the scenes explanation of all this stuff, and especially I hope that sweater analogy that's been landing so well with my clients is landing well with you, at bringing that sweater up to the top of the pile and then you're more likely to grab it. I hope all of that stuff is working with you. And I hope also that hearing this behind the scenes explanation is helping you let yourself off the hook. If you're like me and sometimes you fall out of the habit of taking care of yourself in this way, if you're spending way too much time up in your head and you've given up on or gotten away from these regular practices that get you into your heart and your body, please forgive yourself. It's okay. It's okay. This is why we do this stuff, right? It's a comfort thing. It's a fear thing. It's you know, self-preservation thing even. So it makes perfect sense if you've fallen out of the habit that has happened to you. And it's no problem for you to just get right back into it. Today could be the day. I hope all of this was super helpful for you. If you are really vibing with what I'm saying and you're really interested in how improving yourself and moving forward in your own personal journey can translate into big changes in your parenting, you are my person and I cannot wait to talk to you. So please set up a free consultation with me. The link to do it is in the show notes or in the email that you got or in the video comments, whatever. Click on that link, set it up. Let's meet. I want to hear all about what you're up against, what you dream of, and let's figure out how to stay in the present and make it happen. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
The episode is over, but there's more waiting for you. You can grab my free workbook, Getting Kids to Listen the First Time, that walks you through the fundamental principles I teach all of my clients and applies them to this very universal parenting challenge. So if you're sick of repeating yourself all day long or just want to learn more about my style, you'll definitely want to go to bit.ly/kidswholisten. And if you're ready to work with me, let's meet. Set up a free call at bit.ly/KaplanCall, and let's create an action plan that gets you exactly where you want to go. And of course, links to all this goodness are in the show notes. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.